Good evening, peoples, and welcome back to my living room with me and Gingersnap here for our Bible study series. So in December, we were looking at the history of Christmas celebrations and how they've been pretty different from the year 336 when we first started celebrating Christmas until this past year, which was a pretty weird Christmas, all things considered. Really, it was quite different. Anyway, tonight is Twelfth Night, so I thought it would be pretty on theme if we looked at Twelfth Night also. As you might know, there are 12 days of Christmas, and I recognize that this is not the most important thing to be annoyed by every year, and that maybe I should save my energy for other things, but the 12 days of Christmas are not a countdown to the 25th. They start on December 25th. It is a season. Christmas is a season. It is literally still Christmas now. My brother likes to refer to the negative third day of Christmas as 3 days before Christmas, which I think is hilarious. So that's our thing now. So tonight is 12th night. So it is the last day of Christmas, and tomorrow is Epiphany. So at one point, since it took a while before we started celebrating Christmas at all, Epiphany historically has been one of the most important days in the Christian calendar. It was Epiphany and Easter as the two big days, which is not necessarily the place that we put Epiphany in the calendar today. We still celebrate it, but it definitely doesn't tend to be as big as Christmas. Christmas gets done up pretty big. So one might ask, why 12 days? And I couldn't really tell you why 12 days. We tend to like the number 12. There are 12 apostles, there are 12 tribes of Israel, so the number 12 and the number 7 come up a lot in the Bible, so I guess we just like the number, and at some point it was decided that it took 12 days for the Magi to arrive to meet Jesus. It's not in the text, but I don't feel like fighting it. So that's fine. So, since the Magi definitely arrived after the fact, if your nativity set has separate pieces, like this one is a set of 3 pieces, whereas this is just one set piece, you might have a tradition of waiting to put the Magi out until Epiphany, or especially waiting until Christmas Eve or Christmas Day to set out baby Jesus. I have very small nativity sets. This one is especially tiny. It's very small. I've moved a lot as an adult, so I don't have big Christmas decorations. So the shepherds and the Magi really shouldn't ever be in the same scene at the same time, because they are not in the same story. So if you're reading the Christmas narrative from Luke, then you have the shepherds and the angels coming down and singing. Luke 2 is the story that we generally read on Christmas, but there are no Magi in Luke's story. If they're not there. So Luke never mentions the Magi, and Matthew never mentions the shepherds. Matthew has the Magi come, and then the family flees into Egypt. So Matthew says that there were Magi, plural, not 3, just plural, who brought 3 gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So fun fact, these are my Christmas earrings, and they are made out of gold, frankincense, and myrrh put in resin, which I think is fun. They're not necessarily instantly recognizable as Christmas earrings, but whatever. So, it doesn't say that there's 3 Magi. It doesn't say where they're from. Matthew doesn't say what their names are. But over the centuries, we've developed some backstories for them. So their names are now Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. I forget exactly where each one comes from, but they've got this whole backstory and legend. It's kind of fun. But Matthew doesn't say any of that. It could have been 2 Magi who came. It could have been 4 Magi who came. And again, this is really not the point, and it really shouldn't annoy me as much as it does. But nowhere does it say that there were 3 of them. Anyway, so a magi is something more like a priest or a scholar, but because one of the traditional readings for Epiphany is a psalm about kings, the imagery has kind of been combined so that the magi are often seen as kings. So I wanted to read from Psalm 72. You could lie back down, that would be less intrusive to my reading. Or we could get chin scritches. Hear now the word of the Lord. Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon, throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days, may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May his foes bow down before him and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations give him service. So that is from Psalm 72. And so the image of kings bowing before God kind of ties in with the image of these pagan priest, scholar, alchemist, astrologer guys who come and bow before Jesus. And so it's kind of a combination of themes. So it's not that the Magi were literally royalty, but those images pair well nicely. And also, honestly, it's more fun to paint kings than priests. There's really not as much art of us clergy folk as maybe there should be. And for some reason, no one equates me to royalty for being clergy, which is terribly unfair because I happen to think that I look very nice in a tiara. And there is a tradition of wearing usually a paper gold crown on Twelfth Night. So I'm wearing a little star crown tonight because it's partying it up for Twelfth Night, because sure, why not? So anyway, most people, if they have heard of the 12 Days of Christmas, are thinking of this song. It's an annoying song, I'm just saying. It's really repetitive, and then it gets like stuck as an earworm, and then you can't get rid of it. To me, it's not as bad as Little Drummer Boy, which is... Anyway, I have opinions about Christmas music. So, the lyrics date back to the Middle Ages, although there's been like some variations of what all of the gifts are that my true love gave to me, or whatever. But the tune that we know is only from 1906, so that's a fun fact. The lyrics are way older than the music is. So there is an urban legend, and I'm opening by saying that it is an urban legend because it is definitely not the case. But there's an urban legend that rather than being a nonsense song, which it is a nonsense song, there is this theory that it's a really religious song that's supposed to help people remember important aspects of their faith during a time of persecution. So the theory goes that Jesus is the partridge. Jesus is not a bird, he's the Son of God. Anyway. So there's 2 biblical testaments, the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. There's 11 faithful disciples, there's 12 tenets in the Apostles' Creed, etc. There's a little thing for each line. And it is a nice idea, I guess. And there was a point in English history when Catholics were persecuted. It got a little contentious for a couple centuries there. But it is an idea that is literally younger than I am. Someone came up with it in the 1990s. And if a history is younger than I am about the Renaissance era, it's made up. Because, It's made up. Anyway, so it's kind of a nice story after the fact. So none of the religious parallels that people came up with for this 90s era theory are unique to Catholicism, so there wouldn't be a reason to use code language around Protestants. There's some slight differences in our Bibles, but I mean, there's an Old and a New Testament for us both. Like, it's the same disciples, it's the same Apostles' Creed. So that would be really weird. And also, if you were a persecuted people and you wanted to teach like a secret code song to help people learn and remember the general foundations of their faith, why would you pick a Christmas song? It's weird to sing Christmas songs outside of December or early January, generally speaking. So anyway, in conclusion, it's not a religious song. It was never a religious song. And the mental gymnastics to try to make it a religious song could maybe be better spent, like, I don't know, living out your faith rather than trying to add justification to a persecution narrative that... Anyway, so it is a nonsense song, kind of a call and repeat game. One of my least favorite icebreakers, because I just spend the whole time freaking out that I'm going to forget someone's name. You go around the room along the lines of, my name is Annabelle, and then the next person says, her name is Annabelle, and my name is Betsy. And then the next person says, her name is Annabelle, and her name is Betsy, and my name is Cassandra. And then the next person says, her name is Annabelle, and her name is Betsy, and her name is Cassandra. Yeah, Cassandra. And my name is Deirdre. Anyway, etc. So it goes along like that, and that's kind of the pattern that the song follows. So it's more of a children's game listing out ridiculous gifts. And this also is neither here nor there, as most of my fun facts tend to be. Partridges nest on the ground, so they wouldn't be in a pear tree. And they probably don't want to be put in a pear tree. We should let the partridges nest on the ground where they want to be. Why do we keep putting them in pear trees? Anyway, so Twelfth Night has a long history of parties and games and feasting. So I have a glass of wassail here, which is a spiced apple cider. Generally speaking, when people are out wassailing, there's a lot of alcohol in it. This is just spiced apple cider. With some cranberry juice for color. Of course, there's the king's cake. I kind of improvised this afternoon making a chocolate star bread with some puff pastry and Nutella and chocolate chips. It kind of melted all over the place a bit, but hopefully it'll be tasty once it cools down a little bit more. There's a lot of traditions of hiding an almond or a bean or a ceramic tiny baby doll in there, and someone is crowned as royalty for the day, which is a very old tradition going back to like Roman times and Saturnalia, which is a separate issue entirely. And of course, there's Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Yes, I have the collected works of Shakespeare behind my head, usually speaking. Anyway, so Twelfth Night was commissioned by Elizabeth I and first performed on Twelfth Night, appropriately enough. There's nothing about the holiday in the play itself, but it's called Twelfth Night because that's when it was first performed. So it has, all these themes of, cross-dressing mostly, and love being a source of misery and unhappiness. Sure. Anyway, but it kind of goes along with the idea of pageantry and dressing up and people changing station as a tradition of Twelfth Night. So anyway, tomorrow is Epiphany, so we'll be having a little Epiphany evening service for our Wednesday evening prayer. So I hope that you find some weird excuse to celebrate in something tonight, because I think that in these weird times we should grab any little excuse we can find to celebrate. So I'm here in my crown with my chocolate star bread and my wassail and my cat. Smile for the camera. Thank you. So, we do what we can. So the idea of Christmas being a season, there's much more to celebrate than a single day. Friends, I hope that you are having a lovely and colorful and sparkling 12th night, however you are celebrating that, and I hope to see you tomorrow.